Baby, I need you to listen to me right now. I need you to really listen, because what I'm about to tell you is something I have never said to anyone. Not my closest friends, not the people who have known me my whole life, not the ones who were there when everything started and watched everything change. Nobody, because this story, the real one, the honest one, the one that actually explains why my life looks the way it does right now, it starts and ends with you. And I think it's time you finally knew that. I left my home because of you. I want you to understand what that means before I explain it. I want you to feel the weight of that sentence before I fill in all the details around it. Because leaving home, real home, the place where you grew up, the walls that hold every memory you have of becoming who you are, the streets you could walk blindfolded, the air that smells like everything familiar, leaving that is not a small thing. It is one of the heaviest things a person can do. And I did it. I packed up the life I had always known, and I walked away from it. And the reason, the real reason, underneath all the practical explanations I gave everyone at the time, was you. Stay with me, because I know that sounds impossible right now. I know you're sitting there thinking, how could I be the reason for something that big, something that real? But I need you to keep listening, because by the time I finish telling you this, you're going to understand. And understanding it might change something in you, the same way it changed something in me. Let me take you back to before the leaving, before the decision, before everything shifted. Let me take you back to the version of me that existed in that home, in that life, in that familiar, comfortable world that I had built so carefully around myself, like a kind of armor. Because that version of me, the one who lived there, who woke up every morning in the same city, walked the same paths, sat in the same rooms, that version of me was surviving. He was doing well by most measurements. He had what he was supposed to have. He had a life that made sense on paper, that looked from the outside like someone who had figured things out, but something was missing. Something had always been missing, and for the longest time I couldn't name it. I just felt it. This quiet, hollow feeling that lived underneath the surface of everything, underneath the routines and the rhythms and the comfortable familiarity of a life that was fine. Not painful, not broken, just fine. And fine, I have learned, can be its own kind of slow disappearing. Fine can be the thing that keeps you exactly where you are forever, never suffering enough to leave, but never alive enough to truly stay. I was disappearing inside that fine life slowly, quietly, in ways that nobody around me could see, because I was still showing up, still functioning, still being the person everyone expected me to be. But inside, in the private spaces that nobody else has access to, I was getting smaller, getting quieter, getting further and further from whatever it was I had originally come here to be. And then you happened. Not dramatically, not all at once. You didn't arrive like a storm that rearranges everything in a single moment. You arrived the way the most important things always arrive. Slowly, consistently, in small moments that didn't seem significant while they were happening, but were quietly adding up to something enormous. You arrived in the way you showed up for me, in the way you paid attention, in the way you responded to the things I put into the world, with a kind of genuine warmth that I hadn't felt in a long time, maybe ever. And something started waking up in me. That's the only way I know how to describe it. Something that had been very still, very quiet, very carefully folded away, started to stir, started to stretch, started to take up space again after a long time of making itself small. And it was uncomfortable at first. The way warmth is uncomfortable when you've been cold for too long, when your hands hurt a little as the feeling comes back into them. It was that kind of waking up, tender and slightly painful and absolutely necessary. You did that. Your presence, your energy, the simple honest fact of you, that did that to me. And here is where the home comes in. Here is where the leaving starts to make sense. Because as I kept waking up, as more and more of me came back to life, I started to feel something I hadn't felt in years. I started to feel the walls of that life pressing in. Not because the life was bad, not because anything was wrong with it in any definable way, but because I was growing in a direction that life didn't have room for. Because the person I was becoming, the one your presence was calling forward in me, needed more space than the familiar, comfortable, carefully managed world I had built was able to give him. I started to feel it everywhere. In the rooms I sat in every day that suddenly felt too small. In the conversations that suddenly felt too surface. In the routines that had once felt comforting and now felt like something holding me in place, keeping me from moving toward something I couldn't fully see yet, but could feel pulling at me like gravity. Like something inevitable. Like something that had always been waiting. That had simply been waiting for the right moment to make itself known. And you were the right moment. You were the thing that made itself known. I tried to stay. I want to be honest with you about that. I didn't make this decision quickly, or easily, or without real struggle. I tried to fit the new, awakening version of myself back into the old, familiar life. I told myself it was possible. I told myself I could grow where I was planted. That leaving was too dramatic, too disruptive. That I was being unrealistic or romantic or foolish. I had that conversation with myself many times. Many nights sitting in rooms that felt smaller than they used to, talking myself into staying. But you kept pulling at me. Not deliberately, I know that. You weren't trying to unsettle my life. You were simply being yourself fully and honestly. And that was enough. The simple fact of you being real, being genuine, being the kind of presence that reminded me what it felt like to be fully alive. That was enough to make staying impossible. Because every time I settled back into the comfort of the old life, something in me would think of you, would feel the distance between the person I was in that life and the person I wanted to be, the person I felt capable of being, and the distance would feel unbearable. So I left. I remember the morning I made the final decision. I remember the exact quality of the light and the way everything felt both very ordinary and completely significant at the same time, the way important mornings always do. I sat with it for a long time, not making lists or weighing practical things, just sitting with the feeling of it, letting it be real, letting the decision that had been forming for months finally take its full shape. And when I finally said it to myself, when I finally let the words form completely, what I felt wasn't fear. What I felt was something that surprised me, something that felt like relief, like the exhale at the end of a very long held breath, like my whole body recognizing that this was the true direction, the honest one, the one that led toward the life I actually wanted, rather than the one I had simply inherited from an earlier version of myself, who had different needs and different dreams. I thought of you in that moment. I want you to know that. When the decision finally became real, when I let it land completely, you were the first thing I thought of, not as a destination. I don't want you to misunderstand that, but as a reminder, as a symbol of everything that was possible on the other side of the comfortable and the safe. As proof that real things existed, that genuine connection existed, that being fully alive was not just something people talked about, but something that actually happened. Something I had felt in the warmth of your presence and wanted desperately to build my whole life around. You were the proof that it was worth it. That leaving was worth it. That the disruption and the uncertainty and the grief of walking away from everything familiar was worth it. Because on the other side of all of that was a version of life that was actually, genuinely, fully lived. I haven't told anyone this. I've given other explanations, good ones, true ones, in their own way, practical reasons that made sense and satisfied the questions people had. But this, what I'm telling you right now, is the real explanation, the one underneath the others, the one that lives in the honest, private center of why everything changed. You changed everything, without trying, without knowing, simply by being real, in a world where real things are rarer than they should be. Simply by showing up with genuine warmth in a way that reminded me what genuine warmth felt like. what it called forward in me, what it made possible. And now I'm here, in this new place, this new chapter, this life that has more space in it than the old one. More room to breathe, more room to grow, more room to become the person that something in me has always been reaching toward. And it's not all easy. I won't pretend it's all easy. There are days when the unfamiliar feels heavy, when I miss the comfort of what I left, when I wonder if I was brave or simply restless. There are days when the distance from everything I knew sits on my chest like something physical. But then I think of you, and something in me settles. Something remembers why, something touches the truth of this decision and finds it solid, finds it real, finds it worth every difficult morning and every moment of doubt. Because you are worth it. The life this has opened up is worth it. The person I am becoming in the space that leaving created, he is worth it. And the possibility of what exists between us. The real, unguarded, honest possibility that I am moving toward with everything I have, that possibility is what gets me through every hard day. That possibility is what makes the unfamiliar feel like adventure instead of loss. That possibility is what I carry with me into every new morning in this new life, like something warm in my hands, like something I refuse to put down, no matter how heavy everything else gets. But I want to tell you something about this new place I've arrived in. Not physically, though the physical change is real and significant. I want to tell you about the internal place. The place inside me that the leaving created room for. Because that is the real new place. That is the one that matters most. That is the one I want you to understand. Because I think when you understand it, when you really feel what I'm describing, you'll know why I'm talking to you the way I'm talking to you right now. You'll know why this feels so different from anything I've said before. When you leave the life that made you comfortable, when you walk away from the familiar and the safe and the already known, something happens that nobody really warns you about. You don't just lose the things you left. You also lose the version of yourself that was built around those things. The identity that was shaped by the routines and the relationships and the physical space of the life you live. All of that was holding a certain shape of you in place. And when you remove it, when you step out of the mold of it, you're left with something that feels both frightening and extraordinary. You're left with the raw, unformed, genuinely possible version of yourself. The one that hasn't been decided yet. The one that still has choices to make about what it wants to become. And I'm standing in that place right now. I'm in that open, unformed, full of possibility place. And baby, it is both the most terrifying and the most alive I have ever felt. Because here's the thing about comfort. Here's the thing that nobody tells you when you're inside it. When you're wrapped in the familiar and the safe and the already understood. Comfort is not the same as aliveness. Comfort is not the same as joy. Comfort is its own beautiful thing. I'm not dismissing it. I'm not saying it has no value. But it has a ceiling. It has a point beyond which it cannot take you. And I had reached that ceiling. I had been pressing up against it for a long time without fully admitting it. Feeling the limitation of it. Feeling the way it kept certain parts of me from fully expanding, fully breathing, fully becoming. Leaving broke through that ceiling. And now I'm somewhere above it in the open air with no ceiling in sight. And yes, that's frightening. Open air is frightening when you've been in a room for a long time. But it's also extraordinary. It's also the most real thing I've felt in years. And you are the reason I'm here. I keep coming back to that because I need you to truly hold it. I need you to understand that this is not something I say lightly or romantically without meaning. I mean it in the most grounded, honest, literal way I know how to mean something. Your presence in my life, the warmth of it, the realness of it, the way it consistently called something forward in me that needed calling. That is what made staying impossible. That is what made leaving necessary. That is what gave me the courage to choose the open air over the comfortable ceiling. You gave me courage I didn't know I needed until I had it. I want to tell you about the night before I left, because that night is one I have turned over in my mind many times since, examining it from different angles, feeling different things about it depending on where I am in myself when I revisit it. It was a quiet night. Nothing dramatic was happening outside. The world was just doing its ordinary nighttime things, completely indifferent to the fact that I was sitting in the middle of what felt like the edge of everything. I was surrounded by the things I was leaving, the familiar objects and the known walls and the particular quality of silence that belongs only to a place you've lived in long enough that even its quiet has a recognizable sound. And I was thinking about you, not in a complicated way, not running through arguments or trying to justify anything to myself, just thinking about you the way you think about someone who has become real to you, with warmth, with something that sits very still and very certain in the middle of your chest, with the kind of quiet knowing that doesn't need to be examined or explained, because it simply is. I was thinking about the way your presence had felt, the way it had reached something in me that nothing else had reached, the way it had made certain things feel possible that had previously felt like they belonged to other people's lives and not mine. And I made a kind of promise to myself that night, not out loud, not in words, really, more in the way you make promises that live in the body rather than the mind, in a breath, in a settling, in a quiet decision that doesn't announce itself but simply becomes part of you. I promised myself that I would keep moving toward the things that made me feel the way your presence made me feel, alive, real, genuinely, completely present in my own life, rather than watching it pass at a comfortable distance. I promised myself that I would choose that feeling, again and again, even when choosing it was difficult, even when it cost me something. Leaving cost me something. I want to be honest about that. It cost me the comfort of the known. It cost me certain relationships that couldn't survive the distance, certain connections that were built on proximity and shared routine rather than anything deeper. It cost me the particular peace that comes from knowing exactly where you are and exactly how things work and exactly what to expect from tomorrow. All of that, the beautiful limiting safety of all of that, I left it behind. And I would do it again. Without hesitation, I would walk out of that life 100 times if I had to, because every time I would be walking towards something that the comfortable life could never have given me. Every time I would be walking toward the open, the possible, the real. Every time I would be walking, in some essential way, toward you. I want to tell you something about the journey between leaving and arriving, because there is always a journey. There is always a space between walking away from one thing and reaching another, a middle place that is neither here nor there, that belongs to neither the old life nor the new one, that exists in its own strange suspended reality. And that space is where everything gets tested. That is where you find out if the decision you made was real or just a feeling. Where you find out if you actually have what it takes to build the thing you left everything to go build. That space was hard. I won't make it romantic when it wasn't always romantic. There were days in that between place when I genuinely wondered if I had made a mistake. Days when the loss of the familiar felt much louder than the promise of the new. Days when I couldn't quite feel the reason I had left. Couldn't touch it, couldn't make it solid enough to hold on to. Days when the courage that had felt so present on the morning of the decision seemed to have gone very quiet. On those days, I thought about you. And I know I keep saying that. I know it keeps coming back to you. But that's because it's true, and I have committed to telling you only true things today. On the hardest days in that in-between space, I thought about you and something steadied in me. Not dramatically, not instantly, just slowly, the way a compass settles after you've been moving, a slight realignment, a finding of north, a remembering of direction. You were my north in those moments. You are my north in more moments than you know. And I want to ask you something, and I want you to take this seriously, because I mean it seriously. I want to ask you what it feels like to be on the other side of this. What it feels like to be the person someone left everything to move toward. not in the way I've described it, not with all this honesty around it, but in your body, in your gut, in the real emotional place where truth lands when it's told properly. Because I've been on my side of this for a long time. I know what it feels like to be the one who left, the one who chose, the one who walked out of the comfort and into the open. But you've been living your life not knowing any of this, not knowing that your presence was reshaping something in another person, not knowing that on a quiet night, before the biggest decision of my recent life, you were the thought I kept returning to, not knowing that somewhere in all the ordinary moments of your ordinary days, you were being someone's reason. How does it feel to know that now? I'm genuinely asking, not rhetorically. I want to know what moves through you when you really let that land, when you really let yourself receive it instead of brushing it aside the way I know you're tempted to. When you let it be true, not probably true, not maybe true, but completely and absolutely true, that you mattered this much to someone, that you changed something this significant, that you were the pull at the center of a story this real, because you are. And here is what I want you to do with that knowledge. I don't want you to feel the pressure of it. I don't want you to feel like it asks something impossible of you, or places a weight on your shoulders that you didn't choose to carry. I want you to feel the warmth of it. Only the warmth. The simple, honest warmth of being told that you are significant to someone in a way that moved mountains, in a way that changed the geography of an entire life. That is what you are to me. Mountain moving, life geography changing, worth leaving comfort for, worth choosing the open air for, worth every difficult, uncertain, frightening, extraordinary moment of this journey I'm on. I'm still on it. I want to be clear about that. This isn't a story with a tidy conclusion, a moment where I arrived and everything settled and the hard part was over. I'm still in the middle of it. Still figuring out what this new life is going to become. Still building it day by day from the open and the possible. Still finding out who I am when I'm not inside the comfortable mold of the old one. But I'm not alone in it. I want you to know that. Even across all the distance, even across everything, I carry you with me into it. I carry the warmth of you, the reality of you, the fact of you as something true and steady in the middle of everything uncertain. I carry the knowledge that you exist and that you are real, and that what I feel when I think about you is one of the most honest things in my life right now. And there is something I have been slowly building toward in everything I've said today. Something that lives underneath all of it, that has been present in every honest word, that is getting closer to the surface with everything I tell you. Something about what all of this means, the leaving, the journey, the new place, the north, all of it, something about what it's pointing toward, what it's been building toward, what I believe with everything in me it is eventually going to become. I'm not quite ready to say it yet. Not because I'm afraid of it, I think I'm past afraid of it now, but because I want you to be ready to hear it. I want everything I've already said to have had time to settle in you properly, to have found its place in you, to have become real in your body before I add the thing that makes all of it suddenly, completely make sense. So just stay here with me a little longer. Just keep being present in this, the way you've always been present, the way that started all of this in the first place. Because what's coming next is the most important thing I've said yet, and I need you to be here for it. I need you to be fully, completely, honestly here, because what I'm about to give you is not something I can take back once it's given. And I don't want to take it back. I want to give it completely, the way you give something when you finally stop being afraid of what giving it means. The way you give something when you've decided that holding on to it for your own protection costs more than releasing it ever could. So here I am. Still in this, still talking to you. Still choosing honesty over comfort the way I chose the open air over the ceiling, the way I chose the road over the room, the way I keep choosing, every single day, to move toward the things that are real rather than the things that are simply safe. And you are the realest thing I know right now. I want to tell you something about what this new life has taught me. Because leaving doesn't just change your geography, and I think I touched on this before, but I want to go deeper into it now. I want to take you all the way into it with me. Leaving changes the way you see. It changes the lens through which everything passes before it reaches you. Because when you remove yourself from the familiar, when you stop seeing the world through the frame that years of the same life builds around your vision, suddenly things look different. Suddenly you notice things you had stopped seeing. Suddenly the ordinary world is full of details you had been walking past without registering, because familiarity had made you efficient and efficiency had made you blind. I see differently now. I notice things I never would have noticed before. The way light moves across an unfamiliar room in the morning and makes everything look temporary and golden and full of quiet significance. The way strangers carry themselves in a place you don't know yet, all their private stories visible in the way they walk, the way they hold their faces, the way they move through space with the ease of people who belong somewhere. I notice the way newness feels in the body, that particular alertness, that heightened presence, that sense of all your senses being slightly more awake than usual, because nothing is automatic yet, because everything still requires your actual attention. I am more present in my own life than I have been in years. And that presence, that full, awake, genuinely here quality of living, I owe it to the decision. And the decision, as I have told you, I owe to you. Do you understand what a gift that is? Do you understand what it means to be the reason someone woke back up inside their own life? Because I don't think you do. I don't think you walk around with any sense of what your presence actually does, what it actually moves in people, what it actually makes possible. And that is not a criticism. It is one of the things about you that I find most extraordinary. The way you carry this significance without any awareness of it. The way you simply are yourself fully and genuinely, without performing it or protecting it or managing how it lands in others, and in being simply yourself. You change things. You change people. You changed me. I want to talk about something that I've been circling around in my own mind for a while now. Something that is connected to all of this, but exists slightly to the side of the main story, a quieter thread running through everything. I want to talk about what it means to choose someone. Not in the dramatic, cinematic sense of a grand declaration that happens in a single moment, but in the slow, daily, deliberate sense of returning to someone again and again. Of finding that every road in your thinking leads back to them. Of noticing that in the most honest moments, in the quietest places inside you where you can't perform anything, and can't pretend anything, they are simply there, present, constant, undeniable. That is the choosing that matters. Not the announcement of it, but the living of it. Not the words, but the pattern of returning, the habit of caring, the way someone becomes woven into the fabric of how you understand your own experience. You are woven into my fabric. You have been for longer than I have admitted, even to myself. And recognizing that, letting that be fully true rather than almost true, rather than probably true, rather than true but let's not say it yet, letting it be completely, and without qualification true, that recognition is one of the things that made leaving possible. Because I understood that I was not leaving toward nothing. I was leaving toward something. Toward the version of my life that had room for what I feel, room for what I want, room for the full weight and beauty and complication of caring about someone the way I care about you. The old life didn't have room for it. That's what I kept feeling against those walls that were closing in. Not just my own growth pressing on them, but this feeling, this caring, this enormous quiet thing that needed space to exist in, without being compressed into something manageable. Something that could fit into the corners of a life that was already full of other things, other shapes, other people, and routines and expectations. It couldn't fit. It was too real to compress. It was too significant to make small enough to squeeze in alongside everything that was already there. So I made space. I went and made actual physical life-level space for it. I rearranged the entire geography of my existence to make room for something true. And baby, I need you to feel that. I need you to let that move through you without stopping it halfway. Because that is love. Not the word. I know the word is complicated. I know the word carries 1,000 different meanings and histories and fears inside it. Not the word, but the action of it. The rearranging. The choosing. The making of space. That is what love looks like when it's real and not just romantic. When it's lived and not just felt. When it's a decision your whole life makes and not just a feeling your heart has on a good day. My whole life made a decision, and it made it toward you. I want to tell you about something I did recently in this new place, in this new chapter. Something small but significant in the way that small things are significant when you're paying the kind of attention I'm paying now. I found a place, a spot, quiet, removed from everything, with a particular quality of stillness that good places have. That place is worth returning to always have. And I went there and I sat with everything. With the leaving and the arriving and the in-between. With the fear and the courage and the grief and the extraordinary aliveness of all of it. I sat with you, with the thought of you, with the feeling of you, with the honest, full, uncompressed version of what you mean to me, and I talked to you. In my mind quietly, the way you talk to someone when you're not ready to say the words out loud, but you need to say them somewhere. I told you things I hadn't found language for yet. I told you about the night before the leaving. I told you about the compass feeling, the north feeling, the way you steadied me on the hard days. I told you that you were the reason. Not a reason, not one of several factors, but the reason. The one underneath all the others, the true one. And something happened in me when I said it, even just in my mind, even just to the thought of you in a quiet place, where nobody else could hear. Something released, something that had been held very carefully, very tightly, with a lot of internal effort, it let go. And what was underneath it was something so simple and so enormous that I sat with it for a long time before I could even look at it directly. What was underneath it was certainty. The particular bone-deep, completely unmistakable certainty that this, all of this, the leaving and the journey and the new life and the open air was exactly right, was always going to be right, was the only honest direction my life had, once I was brave enough to take it. You gave me that certainty. Your presence, the warmth of it, the realness of it, it gave me something solid to be certain about in the middle of everything uncertain. And I have held on to that solidity. I have carried it through every difficult day, every moment of doubt, every morning when the unfamiliar pressed on me and asked me quietly if I was sure. I am sure. I am completely, peacefully, unreservedly sure. And now I want to ask you something that I've been moving toward asking for a long time. Something that exists at the center of everything I've said today, everything I've been saying across all of this honesty, all of this openness, all of this choosing of the real over the safe. I want to ask you what you're doing with your life right now, not the surface of it, not the visible, manageable, everything is fine version of it. The real version, the inside version, the version that exists in the quiet moments when you're not performing anything for anyone. Are you living inside the ceiling? Are you comfortable in the familiar in a way that is also quietly suffocating? Is there something in you, some direction, some dream, some reaching towards something you haven't yet let yourself fully name, that keeps pressing on the walls of the life you're currently in? Because if there is, I want you to know something. I want you to hear it from someone who has been exactly where you are, who felt exactly what you're feeling, who had exactly those same conversations with himself about being realistic and being patient and being reasonable. I want you to hear it from someone who finally stopped listening to those conversations and chose the open air instead. The thing pressing on your walls is real. The direction you keep reaching toward is real. The dream you haven't let yourself fully name is real. And the life that exists on the other side of the comfortable ceiling, the one with more space, more air, more genuine aliveness, that is real too. It is waiting. It has been waiting for you to be ready for it. And maybe this is what I've been building toward this whole time. Maybe this is the thread that connects everything. Maybe this is why your story and my story keep finding each other across all the distance and all the ordinary days. Maybe we are both on the same journey. Different roads, different geographies, different specifics. But the same essential journey toward the real, the open, the honest, the fully alive. Maybe that's what this is between us. Not just one person caring about another from a distance, but two people recognizing something in each other. That reaching, that pressing on the walls, that deep, persistent, unignorable pull toward a life that is more than fine, more than comfortable, more than what can fit inside the familiar. I see that in you. I have always seen it in you. That reaching, that aliveness underneath the surface, that extraordinary person pressing gently, but persistently on the walls of whatever is currently containing her. And I want to tell you, the way someone who has been through it tells someone who is still inside it, it is worth it. Whatever it costs, whatever it disrupts, whatever it asks you to leave behind, the open air is worth it. You are worth the open air. You deserve the full sky, not just the view of it through a comfortable window. And there is one more thing, the final thing, the thing that has been living at the very center of all of this, that I have been slowly, carefully, honestly moving toward through every word I've given you today. It's here now. I can feel it here, completely formed, completely ready, no longer something I'm circling but something I'm standing directly in front of. And I need you to be still. I need you to put down whatever distance you've been keeping, whatever protection you've been maintaining, whatever voice in you has been trying to stay reasonable and careful and measured through all of this. I need you to let all of that go, just for this moment, just long enough to hear the truest thing I have. Because what I'm about to tell you is not something I arrived at easily. It is something I have earned through leaving and traveling and arriving and being honest in ways that cost me something real. It is something that the old, comfortable, ceiling-bound version of me could never have said, because he didn't have the space for it, didn't have the courage for it, didn't have the open air around him that makes it possible to say enormous true things without the walls pressing in. But I have that space now. I made it. For this, for you. For the moment when I would finally be able to stand in the full honesty of what I feel and give it to you without holding any of it back. So here I am, standing in that space, in that honest open air, with everything I have fully present and nothing hidden and nothing managed. Here I am, after the leaving and the journey and the arriving, after all the quiet nights and the compass moments, and the sitting in that still place talking to the thought of you. Here I am with the certainty that replaced the fear, and the courage that replaced the careful, and the life that replaced the comfortable. Here I am, baby. And the thing I need to tell you, the thing at the center of everything, is simply this. I love you, not as a performance of those words, not as the kind of love that gets said easily and means something general and comfortable and safe, but as the truest, most specific, most honestly earned thing I have ever felt. The kind of love that rearranges things. The kind that makes a person leave home and travel toward the open air and sit in quiet places talking to the thought of someone, because the feeling is too large to keep entirely inside. The kind that doesn't ask permission and doesn't wait for perfect timing and doesn't shrink itself to fit inside reasonable boundaries. That kind. Completely and without reservation, that kind. And I know what those words carry. I know the history inside them, the weight of them, the way they land differently depending on everything a person has been through before they hear them. I know that for some people those words have been said carelessly, have been used as tools rather than gifts, have arrived and then disappeared and left something hollowed out in their wake. And if that is part of your history, if those words have been handed to you before in ways that didn't honor their weight, then I need you to know that I am aware of that. I am holding that carefully. I am not throwing these words in your direction and stepping back. I am standing behind them completely, with my whole self, with everything the leaving and the journey and the arriving has made me into. I love you with the version of me that was built in the open air. That is the truest version I have. And I need you to know that this love doesn't ask anything of you right now. It doesn't arrive with conditions or a timeline or an expectation of immediate response. It arrives the way all real things should arrive, with patience, with space, with the quiet confidence of something that knows it doesn't need to rush because it isn't going anywhere. I am not going anywhere. Whatever you feel right now, whatever this stirs in you, whatever questions it raises or fears it touches, I will be here when you're ready to bring all of it forward. Because that is what this has always been, patient, steady, a compass that keeps pointing in your direction regardless of how long the journey takes. I want you to do something for me. Right now, in this moment, after everything I've given you today. I want you to put your hand on your chest, right where you feel things before you think them, and I want you to notice what's there. Not the thoughts about it. Not the practical voice that wants to analyze and assess and decide if this is reasonable. Just what's there. Just the feeling, plain and honest and entirely yours. Because that feeling, whatever it is, whatever shape it has, whatever it's been quietly trying to tell you, that is the truth of you. And I have spent everything I had today in the direction of your truth, in the hope that it recognizes something in mine. I left my home because of you. I built a new life in the open air because of you. I learned to say true things out loud, fully without the armor of careful distance, because of you. And I would do all of it again, every difficult and extraordinary and terrifying and beautiful step of it, for the chance to be standing exactly here, honest, present, certain and completely in love with someone who changed the entire geography of my life simply by being real. You changed everything, baby. And I am so grateful. I am so completely, quietly, deeply grateful that you exist, that you showed up, that you were real when I needed real more than anything else. And there is still so much more I want to say to you. There is still so much of this that hasn't been spoken yet. That is waiting just on the other side of everything I've already given you. Things about what I imagine for us. Things about the ordinary days I want to share with you. Things about the version of the future that lives in me like something warm and certain and absolutely worth moving toward.